All right, hello. I'm really excited today to be speaking with Lauren Coleman. Lauren is a fitness and nutrition expert, and she coaches women who are moving through transition phases in their life to feel more empowered and confident with their health. So thank you so much, Lauren, for joining me. I really am grateful for your time. I'm really excited too, because while I work with mothers who struggle with irritability and sort of snapping and feeling really stressed and overwhelmed, the way I do it is very much through looking at underlying uh, past traumas and healing those, and looking at underlying limiting beliefs that get in the way of us prioritizing ourselves, and generally just giving them a broad framework for how to build resilience and calm the nervous system. But a big piece of that, I know for me, has been around food and mood. And I always speak to it and say it's important, but it's not my expertise. So I'm so excited to have you here, because this is kind of like the missing piece of the puzzle. So I really look forward to hearing what you have to share with us. So welcome. And I thought maybe we could start by you just sharing with us how you came to be doing this work that you do with women in transition phases. And maybe as you explain that, you can share with us a little bit about what you mean by transition periods, what that would cover. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Natalie. I really love how you explain what you do as well, how it's a very holistic approach when it comes to treating things related to your emotions and controlling anxiety and things like that, because it is all very interconnected. And I think if you want to be healthy overall, then you need to look at mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, all of these different aspects. And I think you need to start thinking about these things as being practices of self-love rather than things that you should to do. So I suppose I'm a nutrition and fitness expert. Well, I'm a nutritionist and I'm also a personal trainer, as well as a yoga teacher. So I do help people kind of from mainly the physical aspect, regain confidence in their bodies. And yeah, I mentioned that I love helping people who are going through these transition periods of their life, particularly women, because I think in these periods, there is a lot of confusion. So I've been doing the fitness coaching thing for a few years now. So I've got 4.5, coming up 5 years experience doing it. And I think the types of clients that I found myself doing the most research and stressing out the most, but in the best way possible, were these women who had been doing the same thing most of their life and then having, no issues at all, always felt like they were feeling fit, lots of energy, feeling really healthy, in good shape, able to do what they wanted to do. And then they hit these kind of roadblocks when certain events happen, and it creates a little bit of confusion around what they should be doing, because things that used to work don't seem to be working as well as they used to. And so what I mean by that are, in women, you have different phases in your life cycle where physiologically and psychologically, there's a lot of change. So I suppose the first major place of that would be puberty, and then following that you might have women looking to get pregnant, and then pregnancy itself, and then post-pregnancy, and then following from that you have pre-menopause and then menopause. So these are all quite pivotal transition periods in the woman's life. And so the type of women that I would typically work with would be women who are looking to get pregnant, and are looking to optimize their fertility, and then kind of guiding them throughout that pregnancy and postnatal phase. And then also women who are entering that premenopause phase. So the premenopause stage can start as early as 30 years old, but typically late 30s, early 40s, and then nearing even their 50s as well, where hormones start to change. And then I guess that's what I'm more referring to when I'm talking about how they've done things their whole life a certain way and it's always worked quite well for them, and then that doesn't seem to work quite as well anymore. And then that confusion with their bodies, along with a whole lot of other stressful factors as well. So a lot of these women are really hardworking, so they've got really high demand jobs, and they're also mothers as well, and they're carrying a lot of stress on their plate. And then having to think on top of that about what are they going to do about gaining weight. They're getting tired, they're not getting enough sleep, they feel like they don't have the strength or the energy to do things throughout their day. And that itself of feeling like, you know, amongst everything else, your health is slipping out of your hands, I think that adds another type of stress on top of the whole cocktail as well. And then it's at that point in life as well where these stressful kind of thoughts about things that might be happening as you get older start to creep in as well. And so you want to be able to look after yourself so that you can look after your children, your family, and live your healthiest, best life going forward as well. And I think with all of that confusion and like bombardment of advice everywhere, I think these women need some sort of clear guidance of what to actually do. And then I suppose one of the main things that I help people come to the realization of is it doesn't need to be as stressful and overwhelming as a lot of these a lot of people seem to think that it should be or that it will be. And so it's all about kind of working in harmony with the stage of life that they're in a way that's going to kind of move with the grain rather than be abrasive or overly intense or overly radical or anything like that, much more gentle. And then that way they tend to find the kind of results that they were looking for in a much more surprising and effortless way.
That's awesome. I really love that. I love listening to you because there's just so many pieces of what you talk about that that are really kind of bubbling to the surface for me now. Because one of them is that whole idea of, and I particularly probably am working with more people that are heading into that pre-menopause time, and women who are having babies in that mid to late 30s. Not only are they contending with a shift of pregnancy and then birth, but that their bodies are also changing. And so when your mood swings and you have this irritability, which you sometimes are inclined to think is entirely because, you know, kids are you know, challenging to raise, that brings up a lot of stress in itself. We sometimes forget that on top of that, we've got our own underlying physiological processes that are going on that may be making that worse than it needs to be. And sometimes it doesn't have to be as hard as just toughing it out until your kids have left home. And it shouldn't be that. I'm all about like actually motherhood doesn't have to be as hard. We can make it less stressful because there's just so much bump. And that whole idea of there's so much information coming in that it's hard to know what you should be doing. So I love that you're teasing that apart and kind of have this message against the whole work hard mentality that, well, we've all been raised in, right? Our schools, and we really honor this idea of being busy for the sake of being busy. It's like this badge of honor to say how busy you are and how little time you have. And so it's awesome that you highlight that piece around it doesn't have to be as hard as you think, and it can be a lot simpler and not as overwhelming, because I'm sure you probably find that that's a big obstacle, this idea, and especially if you are working with mothers and mothers who are working out of the home or in the home, whatever they're doing, it can feel overwhelming, because if before kids you went on meditation retreats and worked out for an hour and a half 3 times a week, the thought of doing that again is like it's impossible, and it's hard to see that there's an in between. So that's really awesome. So what do you find yourself repeating to people over and over that you just either they know and you just need to repeat, or you just wish every woman going through one of these transition periods knew that would make a big difference?
Yeah, well, I love what you just said, Natalie. I think the whole thing about like hustling and feeling like you need to do everything and be this superwoman is so relevant. And especially I think in today's age, I think a lot of women, particularly like Gen X, so these women who are entering their 30s and 40s at the moment, I think we were raised in this kind of mindset of women can do everything. So if we want to have a career, then like, go and get it. And you can be a mother as well, and you can do anything or be anything that you want to be. And I think that's amazing, and it's so empowering for women. But it's still stressful because they hit this point where it gets to it becomes too much, right? And like you say, if before they had this lifestyle where they were able to go to the gym as often as they wanted, and drink green juice and do meditation retreats and buy organic and still maintain like a successful career, but now they have kids, and it's just like the idea of, oh, well, how am I going to juggle all this as well? That becomes very overwhelming. And when you think that the idea of being healthy does involve all of those things that you used to do, of course, it's going to be difficult to maintain that once you've got kids on the plate as well. So I think that the things that I find myself repeating to many of my clients, I suppose if I had to pick three things from fitness, nutrition, and others, then if I started with nutrition, I would say don't worry so much about trying to lose weight as quickly as possible, or trying to quickly get back to however you looked or whatever you were doing in your 20s. That's probably not the right thing to do for you if you're a little bit older and if your lifestyle is completely different right now. So I think what's going to be more healing and more beneficial for you down the track is, one, improve your mindset around food. So your relationship with food should come before you attempt any sort of lifestyle change. I think if you're stuck in this idea of all or nothing mentality when it comes to dieting, then anytime that you fail or you slip up or you even go out to dinner or have some sort of social meal or a glass of wine, then you'll get into that kind of mode where you'll think, blow it, I'm just going to give up, I'll start next week, whatever. So I think if you practice moderation, and if you practice learning how to, I guess, enjoy food without feeling guilty about it, then you can move on to actually trying to eat in a way that aligns with your health and your body where it is right now. And I think one of the first things that most people should do before, again, they try to lose weight or achieve any sort of massive goal like that, that's, from like a physical standpoint. I think when people think about nutrition, they often think about changing their diet because they want to look a certain way. So try and remove that first and think about how you're going to heal yourself internally before you focus on those external results. And so that's why I think that nutrition should start with gut health. And so I think it's going to involve repairing the gut lining, and it's going to involve feeding those healthy bacteria and helping them proliferate, because your gut is responsible for almost every process in your body, and it's responsible for inflammation, your immune system, even like not just the obvious like your digestive system, but even things like your mood is really influenced by your gut health. So I think that's really worthwhile with starting to get in check. So start eating foods which are high in fiber, but take it slowly, because if you do have any sort of gut health symptoms like irritable bowel or any food intolerances, you want to pay attention to those first. So try and get your food intolerances and your any obvious gut health symptoms under control, and then think about adding in plenty of fibrous food, and then also trying to feed your gut with fermented foods and probiotics. So eating foods like yogurt, sauerkraut, kombucha, things that are going to add bacteria into your gut. And then just focusing on trying to reduce the amount of foods that are going to perhaps impair the lining of the gut a little bit as well. So trying to reduce alcohol, reduce smoking, reduce highly processed foods, super oily food, sugary food, that kind of thing. But I like to think add before you subtract. So think about adding in those healthy foods first before you worry too much about what you're going to cut down. That would be my tip about nutrition. And then I guess when it comes to exercise, again, I think we need to focus on less is more. So do basically the minimum that you can kind of get away with, just to be healthy and to slowly work towards those results. You can always add more in later, but start with, if you do 3 to 4 times a week of moderate intensity activity for 30 minutes, combination of resistance training, cardio training, I think that's a really good place to start. And if you can't do that, then just walking for 3 to 4 times a week, 30 minutes at a minimum. It's so much better than doing nothing at all. It'll get endorphins going. It'll make a huge difference to your mood. And I think when you're at least feeling good mentally, then you're more inclined to make better choices with your food, and even manage stress and make better choices in your life in general. And then lastly, I would say focusing on breathing as well. So I think if you take time out of your day to check in with how you're breathing, so making sure that you're breathing into your diaphragm, breathing deep into the belly, rather than this kind of anxious breathing up into your chest. It's the fastest way to switch from your sympathetic nervous system to your parasympathetic nervous system. So from that fight or flight mode into your resting and digesting mode. And that in itself will make a huge difference to your digestion and your stress levels. And it can even have an even further effect of adjusting the pH balance of your body as well. So our respiratory system is one of the major detox pathways of our body. So if we're constantly anxiously breathing, we're not filling in with enough oxygen, and we're constantly maintaining a high carbon dioxide ratio within our lungs, then it means that our body's not getting rid of toxins from our body as effectively as it could. And so it's just much better for our overall health if we can check in with our body, and whenever we're conscious of it, just to try and breathe deeply. So those would be my 3 long elaborated tips.
No, that's awesome. I love it. I mean, breathing is a big part of the work I do as well. And I know a lot of the mums who are watching this will have been on my Keep Your Cool Mama training, and I talk a bit about breath there. And I think one of the things I say, because I work with a lot of people who struggle with anxiety, both online and also, well, in person back in those days when we saw people in real life. And I know that some people struggle with diaphragmatic breathing and doing any sort of form of breathing. So I always say, just focus on breathing, just notice your breathing, like follow it, because the minute you do that, it naturally starts to find its own rhythm, which is not the hyperventilation place. So if you do struggle to do the deep breathing thing, just watching your breath will actually naturally settle it. And then, or just focus on the exhale, right? Like you said, it's getting the air out. You want to get the air out so that you make space for oxygen. And so many things, like, as you say, it's so big. Breathing could be like a 6-week long program on its own, right? Yeah, but I also love how what you're really talking about here is taking the pressure off doing the maximum, finding your minimum. I mean, even if it's 10 minutes of walking means you're going to do something rather than nothing, and 30 minutes feels overwhelming still for you. Like, I know that some parents will be watching this going, I can't do 30 minutes. It's like 10 minutes is still better. Something's better than nothing, right? Yeah. And I guess you probably also would, it sounds like this was challenging for you to come up with just 3 things, right? Because there's so many. I love the gut health piece. I think that's really pertinent when you've got mood or anxiety as an issue. So much of it is around gut health, right? Yeah. And but I think, I don't know about you, but I find, like, if people are watching this, that it could be overwhelming, but it's all about starting with one of those things first, right? Hey, and then layering in the pieces. And I love that mindset piece, just changing how you believe about food. But it comes back to what you said right in the beginning. You think of all of this as self-love, loving yourself, and really radically taking care of yourself. It becomes easier to do. Like, what would the version of me who loves myself choose to do in this moment? Choose to eat or to add. So a wealth of information there. That was like, I had a question here about your top tip, but I'm like, that was a lot of That was awesome. So I might change that question on you and say, like, what is your number one thing that you need to do in your life, like to look after your health? Like if you had to just, if you were stuck and you had to choose just one. I put you on the spot here.
That's a really tough question, just to think of one tip. But
more one thing you value. It doesn't even need to be a tip for everyone else. Just if you think of a thing that you just couldn't do without in your life,
yeah,
what would it be?
yeah. I think that everybody, and for myself, I've found this as well. I feel like we need at least 5 to 10 minutes a day of just uninterrupted me time. And so whether you use that time to do like some meditation, breathing exercises, journaling, or just sitting with your own thoughts, I think that it should be device free, not like minimize distractions, try not to be like, try not to let your thoughts kind of distract you or like consume you or anything like that, but clearing the mind and just like yeah, giving yourself that time daily just to check in with how you really are, rather than just trying to blur it out or ignore it, or just forget about these feelings. I think that, you know, even when we think that we're doing nothing, often we actually are doing something, right? So if we give ourselves 10 minutes to take a break from work or something, often we're on our phones and we're scrolling, and therefore we're consuming content. Or, you know, even if you're just having a lie down, you end up stressing out about work or meetings, or you know, what are you going to make for dinner, rather than actually checking in with yourself, like how are you actually feeling physically and mentally, and what's actually going on. And so I think you know, it's worthwhile, if you don't have that sort of practice already, to start getting into it. Set a timer each morning or evening, and then just try and be alone with yourself, and truly check in with yourself, and make it a positive experience as well. So rather than criticizing yourself, repeating affirmations or visualizing, or you know, some sort of mindfulness practice, I think should be the foundation of any kind of health routine.
I completely agree with you. That is and I know as a mum, that was always challenging in those very early days when you've got a newborn and toddlers, and they don't run by your time schedules, and having that me time, not having that me time, because so often you sit down and the baby wakes up, or the toddler's like, for those of you watching in that phase, it comes. Grab the time when you can, and don't beat yourself up if you can't. But yeah, 5 minutes is actually, it is doable. If you think in small chunks, it's definitely doable. That is I would be my choice as well. I actually make a big practice of it, like these days, but I can, because my kids are older, and wake up at a predictable time of day. So I wake up at 5 and I have an hour and a half to myself in the mornings. And that is it's like my sacred time, because no one else is awake except the dog, and I ignore her as well. She kind of comes to say hello. I don't engage and she leaves. So it's like, even like you say, it's and I handwrite in a journal, so that I don't even check my phone. The alarm goes off, but I'm usually awake anyways. And I have disciplined myself to not look at my phone. So I meditate, and then I just write. And it's been such a wonderful, sometimes it's cathartic, sometimes it's time I'm just noodling on business ideas, or just, you know, creating a new program, and just, you know, it births in those moments of quiet. But it's that's when I'm feeling good, but it's the time to really notice how you're feeling. I think some people don't do that because it's just too scary.
Yeah, it is.
Stop, because if I stop, I need to actually acknowledge I'm absolutely exhausted and I may never start again. Like, I think that's a big fear for a lot of people. Do you find that, like, people are actually just scared to face what's there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that fear of confrontation is it's in so many things, isn't it? I think you know, there are so many things that we just don't want to know about ourselves. I think People are like with the nutrition work that I do, I often get people to like keep a food diary, and even that's quite scary for a lot of people. And so I try and make it as non-confrontational as possible. Like if someone has a really damaged relationship with food, I'll be like, don't even worry about the numbers, just write things down. And I just want to see what you're eating and how you're feeling about it. But yeah, for many people, like that itself is a huge fear of confrontation.
And I think it comes from a society that doesn't like, we aren't really taught how to be with difficult feelings that well, as we
Yeah.
were taught to bypass them a lot. And that happiness is the goal, and feeling great all the time is the goal. Like it's only like this one-dimensional life, but all these other feelings are just part of it as well. And the more we can just be okay with them being there, the easier it is to sit in them. It's like you're a yoga teacher, so you're familiar with the lotus flower and that idea of sitting in the muck, and where the beauty comes from, right? Taking the time to be in the muck and wallow, or not wallow, but just be in it. I think it helps. I love how Brene Brown, well, it's not even, it just comes up in a lot of her podcasts and writing, and I don't even know who even said it originally, but this idea of emotions, if they come up, they're a tunnel. You do move through them and come out the other end, but unfortunately the only way through is through.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't feel them, they're stuck inside you wreaking havoc, really, truly. And it's just as bad as constipation. It's emotions are just as bad for you. So I love that you brought that up, and that's your number one as well. It's I ask lots of people this, and it's so common, that the stillness, just stopping and being with no stimulation. And I think for mums, that can be truly valuable, because a lot of what's stressful about motherhood is sensory overload. Babies on constant demands, things to do, just it's loud. It's loud. And then when it's quiet, it's too quiet. So it's just giving your system a chance to kind of decompress. Yeah, thank you so much. I have loved chatting. I keep going, but I think you've just given people a lot to think about. Awesome.
Thanks, Natalie. And I loved what you were saying just then at the end as well. I think that's such a like that point about how negative emotions is something that they're just part of life, and we need to experience them, and we need to avoid fearing them and running away from them, and just let ourselves go through them. And I think with any sort of health journey or commitment to improving yourself, then I think it is about acknowledging those roadblocks, and then just allowing yourself to identify what's actually going on, and what sort of negative emotion is keeping you in that place, so that you can heal from it, and then make progress in the right direction.
Awesome, thank you. And for those of you who are keen to learn more or contact Lauren, you can check out our website, which I will put in the description of the video and also in the comments below if you're watching this on Facebook. And you can get Lauren at thefitnutritionist.co.nz, and her email address is, you tell me, it's Lauren at the fit.
So it's just laurencolemanpt@gmail.com.
Oh, okay. Why did I get that wrong? Lauren Coleman PT. I'm going to put that in, because that's hard to remember everything. So you'll have access to that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and maybe we can chat again sometime. I'm sure there'll be more to talk about. All right.
Thank you, Natalie. It was so nice.